Chapter 1. The Storm and the Stranger. The rain came down like judgment itself. Marin's hands trembled on the steering wheel as the wipers fought a losing battle against the deluge. Every muscle in her body screamed for rest, but she couldn't stop. Not yet. Not when every mile put more distance between her and the life she'd finally escaped. 3 hours outside Ashford, the highway had given way to winding mountain roads that seemed designed to swallow travelers whole. Her ancient Honda coughed and sputtered, protesting the climb. The fuel gauge hovered dangerously close to empty, and her phone had lost signal 20 miles back. "Come on," she whispered, pressing the accelerator. "Just a little further." The baby kicked, a flutter against her ribs that made her breath catch. 5 months along, and already her daughter was a fighter. Had to be, to survive what they'd been through. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the forest on either side of the road. In that flash of white, Marin saw something that made her heart stop. A wolf, massive and dark, standing in the middle of the road. She slammed on the brakes. The car hydroplaned, tires screaming as it slid sideways. Time stretched impossibly thin as the vehicle careened toward the ditch. Marin threw her arms over her belly, a scream locked in her throat. The impact jolted through her bones. The car came to rest at a violent angle, nose down in the muddy ravine. For a moment, she could only sit there, gasping, checking herself for injuries with shaking hands. The baby kicked again. Relief flooded through her so intensely it brought tears. "We're okay," she breathed. "We're okay." But the car was dead. When she turned the key, nothing happened. Not even a click. Marin grabbed her phone, no signal, and her emergency bag from the passenger seat. The rain had lessened to a steady downpour, and darkness was falling fast. She couldn't stay in the car overnight. Not in this cold, not pregnant, not with no way to call for help. She forced open the door and climbed out, immediately sinking ankle-deep in mud. The forest loomed around her, ancient pines that seemed to lean in with curiosity. The air smelled of wet earth and something else. Something wild and electric that made the hair on her arms stand up. That's when she heard it. A low, pained sound coming from somewhere ahead. Every instinct told her to climb back in the car and lock the doors. But Marin had learned to trust her gut over the past 6 months, and her gut said that sound meant someone, or something, needed help. She pulled her coat tighter and moved forward, using her phone's flashlight to navigate the treacherous ground. The beam caught on something dark sprawled beneath a massive pine, barely visible through the undergrowth. The wolf. Marin's breath caught. It was even bigger up close, easily the size of a small bear, with fur so dark it seemed to absorb the light. One of its hind legs was twisted at an unnatural angle, and blood matted its side. She should run. Any sane person would run. Instead, she crept closer. The wolf's eyes opened, and Marin froze. They were amber, almost gold, and far too intelligent for any animal. They fixed on her with an intensity that felt human, and in their depth she saw pain, yes, but also something like recognition, like it knew her. "Easy," she heard herself whisper. "I'm not going to hurt you." The wolf made that low sound again, and Marin realized it wasn't a growl. It was a whimper. Her medical training kicked in, 3 years as a veterinary technician before everything fell apart. She assessed the injuries from a safe distance. The leg was definitely broken. The wound on its side looked like it might have come from another animal. Claws, maybe, or teeth. "You got in a fight, didn't you?" She set down her bag slowly, never breaking eye contact. "And you lost." The wolf's ear twitched, almost like it was listening. Marin knew this was insane. Wolf attacks were rare, but they happened. This animal was injured and probably terrified, which made it dangerous. And she was pregnant, alone, and miles from help. But those eyes. "I'm going to help you," she said softly. "But you have to trust me. Can you do that?" The wolf's gaze never left hers. After a long moment, it lowered its massive head to the ground in what looked like submission. Marin's hands moved before her mind could catch up. She had bandages in her emergency kit, antiseptic, a thermal blanket. Not enough for a proper vet visit, but enough to stabilize the animal until she could get real help. She worked quickly, talking the whole time in a low, soothing voice. The wolf remained eerily still, only flinching when she cleaned the wound on its side. Up close, she could see the injury was deep but clean. Too clean to be from another animal. It looked almost surgical. "What happened to you?" she murmured, wrapping the makeshift bandage around its ribs. "What are you running from?" The wolf's eyes caught hers again, and for a dizzying moment, Marin could have sworn she saw understanding in them. Not animal instinct, but genuine comprehension. A shiver ran through her that had nothing to do with the cold. She'd just finished splinting the broken leg as best she could when she heard the sound of an engine. Headlights appeared on the road above, sweeping across the trees. The wolf's entire body went rigid. A low growl rumbled through its chest. This one was definitely a warning. "Hey, it's okay." Marin started, but the wolf was already struggling to its feet, favoring its injured leg. Those amber eyes fixed on her one more time, and she could have sworn she saw gratitude in them. Then it limped into the darkness and vanished. Marin was still kneeling in the mud, her hands covered in blood, when the truck pulled to a stop above her and two men climbed out. They were both tall, broad-shouldered, and carried themselves with the kind of easy confidence that set her teeth on edge. It reminded her too much of Marcus. "You all right down there?" the first one called. He had sandy hair and a crooked smile that probably charmed most women. Marin stood slowly, very aware of how vulnerable she was. "Car broke down. I'm fine." The second man, darker, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to see too much, was already scanning the area. His gaze caught on the blood on her hands, the medical supplies scattered on the ground. "You hurt?" His voice was deeper, more cautious. "No, She hesitated. Something told her not to mention the wolf. "I thought I saw an injured animal. Must have run off." The two men exchanged a look she couldn't read. "Well, you can't stay out here," the sandy-haired one said. "There's a town about 10 miles north. We can give you a ride. Get your car towed in the morning." Every alarm bell in Marin's head was ringing. Strange men, isolated road, middle of nowhere. But what choice did she have? "That's kind of you," she said, carefully. "If it's not too much trouble." As they helped her up the ravine and into their truck, the dark-haired man kept glancing at the forest where the wolf had disappeared. His jaw was tight, and Marin noticed his hands were clenched into fists. "You really should be more careful," he said as they started driving. "These woods aren't safe after dark." "Why not?" He met her eyes in the rearview mirror, and something in his expression made her stomach drop. "Because not everything that hunts in them is human." Chapter 2. Sanctuary and Secrets. The town of Clearwater Gap appeared like a mirage through the rain-streaked windshield. It was smaller than Marin had imagined. A single main street lined with old-fashioned storefronts, a diner with a flickering neon sign, and a handful of cross streets that disappeared into the darkness. Everything was closed except the diner and what looked like a small motel at the far end of town. "Not much to look at," the sandy-haired man said, as if reading her thoughts. "But people here look out for each other. I'm Cole, by the way. That's Dominic." The dark-haired man, Dominic, nodded curtly but said nothing. He hadn't spoken since his cryptic warning about the woods, and his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I'm Marin." She didn't offer her last name. Old habit. Cole twisted around in the passenger seat, that easy smile back in place. You got people waiting for you somewhere? Someone we should call? No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I mean, I'm just passing through, looking for a fresh start. Something flickered in Cole's expression. Recognition, maybe, or sympathy. Lot of people come here looking for that. Clearwater's got a way of becoming home when you're not looking. Dominic pulled up in front of the motel, a modest 2-story building with a hand-painted sign that read Mountain View Lodge. The irony wasn't lost on Marin. She couldn't see anything through the darkness and rain. Iris runs the place, Cole said. Tell her we sent you. She'll take care of you. Marin reached for her bag, trying not to wince as the movement pulled at her sore muscles. Thank you, really. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come along. Just be careful, Dominic said abruptly. His dark eyes found hers in the mirror again. And stay inside after dark, especially in your condition. Heat flooded Marin's cheeks. She'd thought her coat hid the pregnancy well enough, but apparently not from him. Is that a threat? The words slipped out before she could stop them, edged with the defensiveness that had kept her alive these past months. It's advice, Dominic replied, his tone softening fractionally. This place is different. Trust me on that. Before Marin could respond, he climbed out and opened her door, offering his hand to help her down. She hesitated, then took it. His palm was warm, calloused, and the moment her skin touched his, something electric passed between them. Dominic's eyes widened, and he released her hand like he'd been burned. Cole appeared at her other side, breaking the tension. Dominic's not great with people, he said cheerfully, but he means well. Right, Dom? Dominic was already back in the truck, jaw clenched. We need to go, now. Cole sighed and gave Marin an apologetic shrug. Welcome to Clearwater. Hope you find what you're looking for. They drove off, leaving Marin standing in the rain, her hand still tingling from where Dominic had touched her. Iris turned out to be a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at Marin, soaked, exhausted, and visibly pregnant, and ushered her inside without asking a single question. Room 7, she said, pressing an old-fashioned key into Marin's palm. Second floor, corner unit, quiet. The bathroom's got a good tub for soaking. You look like you need it. I can pay, Marin started, but Iris waved her off. We'll settle up in the morning. Right now, you need rest. She paused, studying Marin with an intensity that felt almost supernatural. You're running from something. It wasn't a question. Marin's fingers tightened on her bag. I just need a place to stay. Clearwater's good for that, Iris said softly. People here understand about fresh starts, about leaving the past behind. But you should know, this town has its own rules, its own ways. What kind of rules? The kind that keep people safe. Iris handed her a towel and a small basket with toiletries. Stay inside after dark. Don't go into the woods alone. And if you see something strange, keep it to yourself. The same warning Dominic had given. Marin forced a smile. I'm not looking for trouble. Trouble has a way of finding people anyway. Iris's expressions softened. Get some rest, dear. Things will look better in the morning. The room was simple but clean. A double bed with a handmade quilt, a small table and chair by the window, and a bathroom that, as promised, had a deep clawfoot tub. Marin locked the door, checked it twice, then dragged the chair over to wedge under the handle. Another old habit. She ran the bath as hot as she could stand and sank into it with a groan. The heat unknotted muscles she hadn't realized were tense, and for the first time in hours, she let herself truly relax. Her hands drifted to her belly, feeling for the baby's movements. There, a gentle flutter, like butterfly wings. "We made it," she whispered. "We're safe now." But was she? This town felt wrong in ways she couldn't articulate. The warnings, the knowing looks, the way Dominic had reacted when she'd touched him. And then there was the wolf. Maren closed her eyes, remembering those amber eyes staring into hers with impossible intelligence. The way it had submitted to her touch. The way it had looked at her, like it knew her. Like it was trying to tell her something. She must have fallen asleep in the tub, because the next thing she knew, she was jerking awake to the sound of howling. Not one wolf. Several. The sound echoed through the mountains, primal and haunting, raising goosebumps on her skin despite the warm water. Maren climbed out, dried off, and moved to the window. The rain had finally stopped, and moonlight painted the town in shades of silver. The street was empty, but beyond the buildings, she could see the dark mass of the forest. And there, at the edge of the tree line, a shadow moved. It was massive, shaped like a wolf but far too large. As Maren watched, it stepped into a shaft of moonlight, and she saw the distinctive dark fur, the powerful build, the injured wolf. It had followed her. No, that was impossible. Even if the animal could walk on that broken leg, why would it track her to town? Wolves avoided human settlements. The creature's head turned, and even from this distance, Maren felt the weight of its gaze. Those amber eyes found her window unerringly, and her, breath caught. It was watching her. Protecting her. A truck rumbled down the street. Dominic's truck. It pulled to a stop near the motel, and both men got out. But they weren't looking at the building. They were staring at the forest, at the wolf. Cole said something Maren couldn't hear, gesturing emphatically. Dominic shook his head, his posture rigid. Then, deliberately, he turned and looked directly up at Maren's window. For a heartbeat, their eyes met across the distance. Dominic's expression was tortured, pain and longing, and something that looked like resignation. Then he turned back to the forest, and Maren saw him raise one hand in a gesture that was unmistakably a command. The wolf lowered its head and melted back into the trees. Maren's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. The implications were impossible, insane, but she couldn't deny what she'd seen. Dominic had commanded the wolf, and it had obeyed. She stumbled back from the window, one hand pressed to her chest. Her mind raced, trying to rationalize what she'd witnessed. Maybe he was a wildlife officer. Maybe the wolf was trained somehow. But deep down, in a place that predated logic, she knew the truth was something else entirely. Something that should have terrified her. Instead, all she felt was a strange pull, like recognition, like fate clicking into place. The baby kicked, hard enough to make her gasp, and Maren wrapped her arms around her belly protectively. "What kind of place did we land in?" she whispered to her unborn daughter. From somewhere in the mountains, the howling rose again, and this time it sounded almost like an answer. Chapter 3. Morning Light and Hidden Truths. Maren woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee drifting up from somewhere below. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The accident, the wolf, the strange town, and Dominic commanding that massive creature with a single gesture. She sat up, slowly, her body protesting every movement. The bruises from the crash were starting to make themselves known. The baby stirred, and Maren pressed her hand to the spot, relieved to feel the familiar flutter of movement. "Good morning, little one," she whispered. "Ready to figure out what we've gotten ourselves into?" She dressed in the cleanest clothes she had left, jeans and an oversized sweater that hid her pregnancy reasonably well, and ventured downstairs. The small lobby had been transformed into an impromptu breakfast area, with a coffee station and a plate of fresh muffins on the front desk. Iris appeared from a back room, looking far too alert for 7 in the morning. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I expected," Marin admitted, accepting the cup of coffee Iris pressed into her hands. Then, remembering, "Actually, I shouldn't." "It's decaf," Iris said with a knowing smile. "And there's herbal tea if you'd prefer. The muffins are banana nut, good for morning sickness if you're still dealing with that." Marin stared at her. "How did you—" "Raised 4 children of my own," Iris said simply. "You get good at spotting the signs. Plus, the way you're holding yourself. Protecting." Her eyes were kind but curious. "How far along?" Something about Iris's straightforward manner made Marin's walls come down a fraction. 5 months. It's a girl." "Congratulations." Iris handed her a muffin. "Father in the picture?" The question was casual, but Marin caught the weight behind it. "No, and he won't be." Iris nodded, asking nothing more, and Marin felt a rush of gratitude for the woman's discretion. "Your car's being towed to Garrett's garage as we speak," Iris continued. "He's the best mechanic in 3 counties. If it can be fixed, he'll fix it. If not—" She shrugged. "Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." "I need to pay you for the room. And the tow. I don't have much, but—" "You need a job," Iris finished. "As it happens, I need help around here. Housekeeping, front desk, that sort of thing. Room and board included, plus a small wage. Interested?" Marin's throat tightened. She'd been prepared to fight, to scrape by, to do whatever it took to survive. Kindness was harder to accept than hostility. "You don't know anything about me," she said carefully. "I know you're running. I know you're scared. And I know you helped an injured animal last night instead of saving yourself." Iris's green eyes were shrewd. "That tells me enough. How did you know about the animal?" "Small town. Word travels." Iris refilled her own coffee. "Cole and Dominic mentioned it when they dropped by this morning to check on you." Marin's pulse quickened. "They were here?" "Just left, actually. Dominic seemed concerned." Something in Iris's tone suggested she found this significant. He doesn't usually concern himself with strangers. Before Marin could respond, the bell above the door chimed, and Cole walked in, his easy smile already in place. "Morning, ladies. Marin, I was hoping to catch you. Thought you might want a ride to the garage to check on your car." "That's kind of you," Marin said, instinctively wary. In her experience, men who were this helpful usually wanted something. Cole must have read her expression because his smile softened. "Just being neighborly. Besides, Garrett can be intense. Figured you'd want a friendly face." Iris made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Cole's right about that. Garrett's not much for small talk." 20 minutes later, Marin found herself in Cole's truck, driving through Clearwater in daylight. The town was prettier than she'd realized. Mountain peaks visible in every direction, the streets lined with old-growth trees. Everything painted in the crisp colors of early autumn. "It's beautiful," she said without thinking. "It is," Cole agreed. "Isolated, though. Some people can't handle that. But for others—" He glanced at her. "It's exactly what they need." "Why do people keep talking like this town is some kind of refuge?" "Because it is." Cole's tone was matter of fact. "People come here to escape, to heal, to start over. Clearwater doesn't judge. It just accepts." "And the warnings about staying inside after dark?" Cole's hands tightened on the wheel. "There are things in these mountains that most people don't understand. Wild things. It's better to respect that." "Like wolves," Marin pressed. "The one I saw last night, it was huge. Bigger than any wolf should be. Mountain wolves grow large up here." The answer came too quickly, too rehearsed. The altitude, the prey population, makes them different. Marin wanted to push, to ask about what she'd seen between Dominic and the creature, but something held her back. She was the outsider here, and she'd learned the hard way that asking too many questions could be dangerous. Garrett's garage sat at the edge of town, a sprawling building that looked like it had been expanded multiple times over the years. Her Honda was already up on a lift, and a man in grease-stained coveralls was examining the undercarriage with a flashlight. He was tall, at least 6'4", with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and arms covered in intricate tattoos. When he heard them approach, he straightened, and Marin found herself looking into eyes the color of storm clouds. "This your car?" His voice was rough, like he didn't use it often. "Yes, how bad is it?" Garrett wiped his hands on a rag, his expression unreadable. "Engines shot, radiators cracked, transmissions on its last legs." He paused. "Honestly, it's a miracle you made it as far as you did. This thing should have died 50 miles ago." Marin's stomach sank. "Can you fix it?" "I can. Question is whether it's worth fixing. Parts alone would cost more than the car's worth." His eyes were uncomfortably perceptive. "You got the money for that?" "I'll figure it out," Marin said, lifting her chin despite the panic clawing at her chest. "Or," Cole interjected smoothly, "Garrett could work out a payment plan. Right, Garrett?" The mechanic's gaze slid to Cole, and something passed between them, a silent conversation Marin couldn't interpret. Finally, Garrett nodded slowly. "I'll do the work. You can pay it off over time. Fair?" It was more than fair. It was suspiciously generous. "Why?" Marin asked. "You don't know me." "Cole vouches for you, that's enough." Garrett turned back to the car, clearly considering the conversation over. As Cole drove her back to the motel, Marin stared out the window, her mind racing. Everyone in this town seemed connected, operating on unspoken rules and shared secrets. They were helping her, yes, but why? What did they want? "You're wondering what the catch is," Cole said, reading her silence. "Isn't there always a catch?" "Not here." He pulled up in front of the motel and turned to face her. "Look, I don't know what you're running from, and I won't ask. But Clearwater protects its own. You're here now. That makes you one of us." "I've been here less than 12 hours. "Doesn't matter." Cole's expression was serious now, the easy charm stripped away. "This town chooses people, and it chose you the moment you stepped into those woods and helped that wolf instead of running." Marin's breath caught. "What do you know about the wolf?" "I know it should have torn you apart. I know it didn't." Cole held her gaze. "I know that means something, even if you don't understand what yet." He drove off before she could respond, leaving Marin standing in the parking lot with more questions than answers, and a growing certainty that she'd stumbled into something far stranger, and far more dangerous, than a simple mountain town. Chapter 4. The Alpha's Shadow. Marin spent the afternoon learning the rhythms of the Mountain View Lodge. Iris ran the place with quiet efficiency, and the work was straightforward: changing linens, cleaning rooms, manning the front desk during check-ins. Most of the guests seemed to be long-term residents rather than travelers passing through. An elderly man named Walter who'd lived in room 3 for 5 years. A young woman named Sophie who worked remotely and barely left her room. A middle-aged couple who kept to themselves. "They all came here running from something," Iris said matter-of-factly as they folded towels in the laundry room. "Just like you. Just like me, 30 years ago." "What were you running from?" The question slipped out before Marin could stop it. Iris's hands stilled on the towel she was folding. A husband who thought his fists were a substitute for love. "This town saved my life." She met Marin's eyes. "I suspect it might save yours, too." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with understanding. Marin looked down at her hands, at the fading bruises on her wrists that she'd tried to hide under long sleeves. "I won't let him find me," she said quietly. "I can't. Not with the baby. He won't find you here," Iris said with absolute certainty. "Clearwater doesn't give up its secrets easily, and it protects those who need protecting." That evening, as the sun began its descent behind the mountains, Marin found herself drawn to the window of her room again. The forest beckoned, dark and mysterious, and she wondered if the wolf was out there somewhere. If it was watching. If it was Dominic. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. A knock at her door made her jump. She checked the peephole. Dominic stood in the hallway, his expression guarded, a paper bag in his hands. Marin's hand went to the doorknob, then hesitated. Everything about this man screamed danger. The way he moved, all controlled power and barely restrained energy. The intensity in his dark eyes, the secrets he carried like a second skin. She opened the door anyway. "Cole said you didn't eat lunch," Dominic said without preamble. "Iris mentioned you're pregnant. You need to eat." He thrust the bag toward her, and Marin caught the scent of warm bread and roasted chicken. Her stomach growled traitorously. "Thank you," she said, taking the bag. "You didn't have to—" "Yes, I did." The words came out harsh, almost angry. Dominic's jaw clenched and he looked away. "You shouldn't be here." The statement stung more than it should have. "If I'm not welcome, I can leave once my car's fixed." "That's not what I meant." He scrubbed a hand over his face, and for the first time, Marin saw past the hard exterior to the exhaustion beneath. "This town, it's complicated, dangerous, in ways you don't understand." "Then help me understand." Marin stepped into the hallway, letting the door close behind her. "Everyone keeps talking in riddles, about the woods, about danger, about this place protecting people. What aren't you telling me?" Dominic's eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made her breath catch. "Some secrets are kept for a reason, and some secrets destroy people." Marin wrapped her arms around herself. "I've lived with secrets. I know what they cost." Something shifted in Dominic's expression. Recognition, perhaps, or empathy. "What are you running from?" "A man who thought he owned me, who put his hands on me one too many times." The words came easier than she expected. "A man who would take my baby from me if he knew she existed." Dominic's hands curled into fists. "He hurt you." It wasn't a question, but Marin nodded anyway. "Until I found the courage to leave, 6 months ago, in the middle of the night. I've been driving ever since. And now you're here." Dominic took a step closer, and Marin caught his scent. Pine and rain and something wild she couldn't name. "In a town where monsters are real." Her pulse hammered. "What kind of monsters?" "The kind that could keep you safe." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Or destroy you completely." They stood inches apart in the narrow hallway, and Marin felt that electric pull again, stronger this time, like gravity, like magnetism, like something written in the stars themselves. "The wolf," she breathed. "Last night. That was you, wasn't it?" Dominic went absolutely still. For a long moment, he said nothing, and Marin thought he might deny it. Instead, he reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed his fingers against her cheek. His touch was impossibly gentle, reverent almost, and when his skin met hers, that electric sensation exploded into something more. Marin gasped, and she saw her own shock mirrored in Dominic's eyes. "You felt that?" he said hoarsely. "What was it?" "Recognition." He withdrew his hand like it burned. "The wolf knows you, And that's a problem. Why? Because I'm not supposed to feel this. Not for a human. Not when I'm... He cut himself off, backing away. You need to eat. Stay inside tonight. Please. He turned to leave, but Maren caught his arm. The contact sent another shock through her system, and she saw Dominic shudder. Don't lie to me, she said firmly. I've been lied to enough for one lifetime. If there's something I need to know, tell me. Dominic looked down at her hand on his arm, then back to her face. His expression was tortured, warring between truth and protection. Tomorrow, he finally said. Meet me at the edge of town at dawn, where the main road meets the forest. I'll show you what Clearwater really is. And if I don't come, you will. His thumb brushed over her knuckles where she gripped his arm. Because you already know, don't you? Deep down. You knew the moment you looked into that wolf's eyes. Maren's voice was barely a whisper. What am I supposed to know? That fate brought you here. That the wolf choosing not to attack you wasn't random. Dominic's eyes burned into hers. That you're my... A howl split the evening air, closer than it should have been, right at the edge of town. Dominic's head snapped toward the window at the end of the hall, every muscle in his body going tense. Get inside, lock your door. His voice had changed, become rougher, more commanding. Now. What's happening? The pack knows you're here. They're not happy about it. He was already moving toward the stairs. Stay inside, Maren. No matter what you hear tonight, don't leave this building. He was gone before she could respond, taking the stairs 3 at a time with inhuman speed. Maren stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding, the paper bag of food clutched to her chest. Another howl answered the first, then another, until the air was filled with the sound of wolves calling to each other in the darkness. But these weren't the howls she'd heard last night. Those had been haunting, almost beautiful. These were challenges. Threats. Maren retreated to her room and locked the door with shaking hands. She moved to the window and looked out at the forest. In the dying light, she could see shapes moving between the trees. Massive shapes, too large to be natural. And there, in the parking lot below, Dominic stood alone, his body silhouetted against the twilight. As Maren watched, he tilted his head back and released a howl of his own. Deeper, more powerful, unmistakably a command. The other howls fell silent. Dominic's howl echoed through the mountains, primal and beautiful and terrifying. And Maren pressed her hand to the window, her breath fogging the glass. The baby kicked, hard and insistent, as if responding to that wild call. And Maren knew, with absolute certainty, that her life would never be the same. Chapter 5. Dawn's Revelation. Maren didn't sleep. She sat by the window all night, watching the shadows move through the trees, listening to the occasional howl that pierced the darkness. The food Dominic had brought sat untouched on the table. Her stomach was too twisted with anxiety to eat. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw amber eyes staring back at her. Felt the electric shock of Dominic's touch. Heard his words. You're my what? What had he been about to say before the howls interrupted? The baby had been restless too, moving constantly, responding to Maren's elevated heart rate. I know, sweetheart, Maren whispered, rubbing circles on her belly. Mama's scared too, but we've survived worse, haven't we? We'll survive this. Whatever this was. As the first light of dawn began to paint the sky pink and gold, Maren made her decision. She needed answers. She needed to understand what she'd stumbled into, what Dominic was, and why her presence had triggered such a violent response from the pack. She dressed in layers against the mountain chill and slipped out of the motel before anyone else stirred. The town was eerily quiet, holding its breath in that liminal space between night and day. Mist clung to the ground, making everything look dreamlike and surreal. The edge of town was exactly where Dominic had described, where the pavement ended and the forest began, marked by a weathered wooden sign that read, Clearwater Gap, founded 1847. Dominic was already there, standing with his back to her, staring into the trees. He wore dark jeans and a flannel shirt, looking almost normal except for the rigid set of his shoulders and the way his hands were clenched at his sides. "You came," he said without turning around. "You knew I would." Marin stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance. "You said you'd show me what Clearwater really is." "I said a lot of things last night." Finally, he turned to face her, and Marin's breath caught. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, his jaw dark with stubble, and there were scratches on his neck that hadn't been there yesterday. "Things I shouldn't have said." "But you said them anyway." Marin lifted her chin. "And now I need to know the truth. All of it." Dominic studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Walk with me, but stay close. The pack is agitated. They won't hurt you while you're with me, but if you wander off..." "I'm not an idiot," Marin said sharply. "I know when I'm in danger." Something that might have been respect flickered in Dominic's eyes. "No, you're not. That's part of the problem." He led her into the forest, following a path that was barely visible through the undergrowth. The trees closed around them, ancient pines that blocked out most of the early morning light. Birds called in the canopy above, and Marin caught glimpses of movement in the shadows, animals watching their passage. Or not animals. Not entirely. "How much have you guessed?" Dominic asked, his voice low. "Enough to sound crazy if I said it out loud." Marin picked her way over a fallen log, accepting Dominic's hand when he offered it. That electric jolt again, making her gasp. "But I'll say it anyway. You're the wolf I helped. You're not fully human. And somehow this entire town is connected to whatever you are. Werewolves." The word hung in the air between them. Shifters. Lycanthropes. We've been called many things over the centuries. But yes, you're right. I'm not human. Neither are most of the people you've met here. Hearing it spoken aloud should have sent Marin running. Instead, she felt an odd sense of relief, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. "Cole? Garrett?" "Both shifters. Iris is human, but she's been part of this pack for 30 years. She knows our secrets." Dominic stopped at a small clearing where sunlight filtered through the trees. Clearwater was founded by werewolves as a sanctuary, a place where we could live openly among our own kind, protected from hunters and humans who would destroy us out of fear. "And the pack you lead?" Marin's mind was racing, connecting pieces. "That's why they howled last night. Because I'm human, and I don't belong." "It's more complicated than that." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I don't just lead the pack. I'm the alpha. Every wolf in these mountains answers to me. And when an alpha finds his..." He stopped, turning away. "Finds his what?" Marin pressed. "You started to say something last night before we were interrupted." "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She moved around to face him, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I've spent 6 months running, looking over my shoulder, terrified that Marcus would find me. I'm exhausted, Dominic. I can't handle more secrets. So please, just tell me the truth." The anguish in Dominic's expression nearly broke her heart. "Mate," he said roughly. "You're my mate. My fated mate." The world seemed to tilt. What does that mean? It means the wolf recognized you the moment you touched me. It means every instinct I have is screaming at me to protect you, to keep you close, to never let you out of my sight. His hands flexed at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. It means you're the one person in the world who could complete me. Who could make me whole? Marin's hand went to her belly automatically, a protective gesture. I don't understand. We just met. How can you possibly... It's not a choice. It's fate. Biology. Magic. Call it whatever you want, but it's real. Dominic took a step closer, and Marin caught that wild scent again, stronger now. The moment you looked into my eyes when I was wounded, the bond snapped into place. I felt it. The wolf felt it. And based on how you react every time we touch, I think you feel it too. She wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. That pull, that electric connection, the way her heart raced when he was near, it was all real. Undeniable. I'm pregnant, she said, as if that would somehow negate what he was saying. With another man's child. I know. Dominic's voice was gentle. The wolf knows. It doesn't matter. How can it not matter? Because she's yours. That makes her mine to protect, to raise, to love. He finally closed the distance between them, cupping her, face with both hands. A true mate bond doesn't care about the past, only the future. Tears burned in Marin's eyes. This is insane. I know. I came here by accident. My car broke down. I could have ended up anywhere. But you didn't. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. You ended up here. You found me wounded in the forest. You chose to help instead of running. That wasn't accident, Marin. That was fate. I don't believe in fate. Then believe in this. Dominic leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his lips met hers in a kiss that was soft and careful, and absolutely devastating. The electric sensation exploded through her entire body. Marin gasped against his mouth, and Dominic groaned, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, and Marin felt something shift inside her, like a door opening, like coming home, like everything she'd been running from and toward all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead to hers. Did you feel that? Yes, Marin whispered. Her whole body was trembling. What was it? The bond solidifying, the wolf recognizing you, claiming you. His arms tightened around her. I'm sorry. I tried to fight it. I know this isn't fair to you. Stop. Marin pulled back enough to look into his eyes. Don't apologize for something neither of us can control. But I need time, Dominic. I need to understand what this means. What it would mean for me and my baby. Anything you need, he said immediately. Time, space, answers, whatever you want. A branch snapped somewhere in the forest, and Dominic's head whipped around, his entire body going on alert. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Protective, warning. Someone's coming, he said. Stay behind me. A man emerged from the trees, tall, with reddish-brown hair and cold green eyes that fixed on Marin with unmistakable hostility. 2 more men followed, flanking him. So it's true, the first man said, his lip curling. The Alpha's found his mate, a human, a pregnant human. He spat the words like curses. Dominic moved fully in front of Marin, a wall of muscle and barely controlled rage. Stand down, Marcus. Marin's blood ran cold. Wait, Marcus? The man's eyes found hers, and his smile was predatory. Different, Marcus, sweetheart. But I can see why you're jumpy. You've got that look. The beaten dog look. He turned back to Dominic. This is what you're binding yourself to? Damaged goods carrying another man's pup? Dominic's growl became a snarl. Watch. Your tone. Or what? You'll challenge me? We both know you're weaker with her here. Distracted. Marcus took a step forward. The pack deserves better than an alpha who would disgrace us by mating with a human. The air crackled with tension, and Marin realized with growing horror that this was about to turn violent. Because of her. Everything Dominic had worked to build was being threatened because fate had tied him to a broken, pregnant human. She stepped out from behind Dominic, meeting Marcus's hateful gaze head-on. "Then I'll leave," she said clearly. "If my presence is causing this much trouble, I'll go. Today." "No." Dominic's voice was absolute, commanding, the voice of an alpha. "You're not going anywhere." Chapter 6. The Challenge. The forest went silent. Even the birds stopped singing, as if nature itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Dominic's command hung in the air, undeniable and absolute. Marin felt the weight of it, the power behind his words, and understood in that moment what it truly meant for him to be alpha. This wasn't just a title, it was dominance written into his very DNA. Marcus's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "You would defy pack law for her?" "I would burn pack law to the ground for her." Dominic's voice was deadly calm. "She is mine. That makes her untouchable. Anyone who challenges that challenges me directly. Then consider yourself challenged." Marcus's smile was all teeth. "By ancient right, I invoke the trial of dominance. Either prove you're strong enough to keep her, or step aside and let someone worthy lead this pack." The two men flanking Marcus shifted, their expressions carefully neutral, but Marin caught the gleam of anticipation in their eyes. They wanted this, wanted to see their alpha brought down. "Dominic, don't," Marin said urgently, grabbing his arm. "It's not worth it. I'll leave." "Stop." Dominic covered her hand with his, that electric connection sparking between them. His eyes never left Marcus. "A challenge has been issued. It has to be answered. What does that mean?" But even as she asked, Marin knew. She'd seen enough nature documentaries, read enough mythology. Pack animals fought for dominance. They fought for territory, for resources, for mates. And the loser usually died. "It means I fight Marcus in wolf form," Dominic said quietly. "To submission or death. Winner takes the pack and you." "No." Marin's voice cracked. "No, I won't let you risk your life for me. We just met. This is insane. The bond doesn't care how long we've known each other." Dominic finally looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "The moment you touched me, the moment the wolf recognized you, I became yours. Completely. And I will fight anyone who tries to take you from me." "How touching," Marcus sneered. "The mighty alpha, brought low by a human female. Our ancestors would be ashamed." "Our ancestors understood the sacred nature of the mate bond," Dominic shot back. "Something you've clearly forgotten in your ambition." "Ambition?" Marcus laughed. "I call it survival. This pack needs an alpha who puts wolves first, who understands that we can't afford to be weakened by human attachments." His gaze slid to Marin's belly. "Especially not by human baggage." Dominic moved so fast Marin barely saw it. One moment he was beside her. The next he had Marcus by the throat, lifted off the ground, his eyes blazing with barely controlled rage. "Call her baggage again," Dominic said softly, "and I'll rip your throat out right now. Challenge or no challenge." Marcus's companions tensed, ready to intervene, but Marcus raised a hand, stopping them. Even with Dominic's hand around his throat, he managed a strangled laugh. "See? Already losing control. Already putting her before the pack." He wheezed when Dominic's grip tightened. "Proves my point." Dominic released him with a shove that sent Marcus stumbling backward. 3 days. The next full moon. We settle this in the old way, before the entire pack. Agreed. Marcus rubbed his throat, his smile vicious. And when I win, the human leaves. Immediately. No protection, no escort. Just her and whatever she can carry, cast out into the world alone. Marin's hand went protectively to her belly. The thought of being forced out, alone and vulnerable with her baby, sent ice through her veins. But worse was the thought of Dominic hurt, broken, or dead because of her. And when I win, Dominic said, each word deliberate, you submit to my authority. You accept Marin as my mate and future Luna of this pack. You swear loyalty to her and to any children we have. Or you leave Clearwater forever. Luna. The word sent a shock through Marin. She knew what it meant. Alpha's mate, pack mother, second in command. The weight of that responsibility was staggering. Marcus's expression darkened. Done. 3 days, Alpha. Prepare to lose everything. He and his companions melted back into the forest, leaving Marin and Dominic alone in the clearing. The moment they were gone, Dominic's shoulders sagged, and he braced himself against a tree. You're hurt, Marin said, immediately moving to his side. Now that she looked closer, she could see the scratches on his neck were deeper than she'd thought, and there was a stiffness to his movements that suggested other injuries. From last night. The pack wasn't happy about your presence. Some of them made their displeasure physical. Dominic tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. I'm fine. I heal fast. Let me see. Marin pushed his flannel shirt aside, revealing more scratches across his chest and shoulder, deep gouges that looked like they'd come from claws. Dominic, these are serious. I need you to understand what you've walked into, he interrupted, catching her hands. Marcus isn't just challenging me for power. He's challenging the old ways, the traditions that have kept this pack stable for generations. If he wins, you die. Marin's voice broke. Don't try to sugarcoat it. I know what happens in these dominance fights. Not always. Sometimes the loser submits. And you would never submit. Not to him. Not while I'm in danger. She pulled her hands free, wrapping her arms around herself. This is my fault. If I hadn't come here, if I hadn't helped you that night, then I would have died alone in those woods. Dominic cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Bleeding out from wounds Marcus and his allies gave me when they tried to challenge me the first time. You saved my life, Marin. Don't ever apologize for that. But now you have to risk it again. For me. For a woman you barely know, carrying another man's child. Tears spilled down her cheeks. How is that fair? Fate isn't fair. It just is. His thumb brushed away her tears with infinite gentleness. And I would risk everything, 1,000 times over, for the chance to be yours. The conviction in his voice broke something open inside Marin. All her life, she'd been told she wasn't enough. Not pretty enough, not obedient enough, not worthy of real love. Marcus, her Marcus, had spent years systematically destroying her self-worth, making her believe she deserved the pain he inflicted. But Dominic looked at her like she was precious, like she was worth fighting for, worth dying for. I'm broken, she whispered. I have nightmares, trust issues. I flinch when people move too fast, and I'm about to be a single mother with no job, no money, and a car that barely runs. You're also brave, compassionate, strong enough to leave an abuser and survive on your own for 6 months while pregnant. Dominic's eyes burned into hers. You're a fighter, Marin, and fighters recognize each other. I don't want you to die for me. Then give me something to live for. He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath warm against her skin. Stay. Not because fate says so, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to. Because you feel this bond too, and you want to see where it leads. I'm terrified, Marin admitted. So am I. The confession seemed to cost him. I've been alpha for 8 years. I've faced down rogue wolves, hunters, and rival packs. But the thought of losing you, of never knowing what we could be together, that terrifies me more than any challenge Marcus could issue. The baby kicked, hard enough that Dominic must have felt it where their bodies pressed together. His eyes widened, and something soft and wondering crossed his face. She's strong, he said quietly, like her mother. You can't know it's a girl. I know. His hand moved to cover hers on her belly, and that electric connection pulsed between them, warm and right. The wolf knows. She'll be fierce and beautiful and loved. I promise you that. Marin closed her eyes, letting herself imagine it for just a moment. A life here, in this strange town, with this impossible man. Her daughter growing up wild and free, protected by a pack of werewolves. No more running, no more fear. It was everything she'd dreamed of, and nothing she'd ever dared to hope for. 3 days, she said finally, opening her eyes. You have 3 days to train, to heal, to prepare. And I need 3 days to figure out if I'm brave enough to bet my entire future on fate and a mate bond I don't fully understand. Fair enough. Dominic pressed a kiss to her forehead, lingering. But Marin, the bond goes both ways. I feel what you feel. And right now, I feel your hope fighting with your fear. Hope is winning. Don't be so sure, she said, but there was no heat in it. I am sure. He stepped back, his expression turning serious. Now, I need to get you back to the motel. The pack will be watching, and I need to make it clear you're under my protection. Cole and Garrett will help guard you while I prepare. I don't need guards. Yes, you do. His voice took on that alpha command again. Marcus won't play fair. He'll try to get to you, to use you against me. Please, Marin, let me keep you safe. The desperation in his eyes decided it for her. Okay, but only because I'm not stupid enough to underestimate your enemies. Our enemies, Dominic corrected. The moment you accepted the mate bond, my fights became yours, for better or worse. As they walked back through the forest, Marin couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking towards something irrevocable. 3 days until the full moon. 3 days until everything changed. She just hoped they both survived it. Chapter 7. Healing Wounds. The next 2 days passed in a strange suspension of reality. Marin threw herself into work at the motel, grateful for the distraction. But she couldn't escape the weight of what was coming. Everyone in Clearwater seemed to know about the challenge. Guests whispered when she passed. Sophie, the quiet woman from room 8, actually smiled at her in the hallway. A small gesture of solidarity that made Marin's throat tight. Cole and Garrett took turns shadowing her, always within sight, but trying to be unobtrusive about it. Cole kept things light with easy conversation and terrible jokes. Garrett was quieter, but his presence was somehow comforting, solid, and unshakable. You don't have to babysit me, Marin told Garrett on the second afternoon as she folded linens in the supply room. Not babysitting, protecting. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. There's a difference. Is there? She snapped a sheet with more force than necessary. Feels like everyone thinks I'm helpless. No one thinks that. Garrett's storm gray eyes were serious. A helpless woman doesn't escape an abuser while pregnant and survives 6 months on the road alone. A helpless woman doesn't walk into a forest to help an injured wolf twice her size. You're a lot of things, Marin. Helpless isn't one of them. The validation settled something in her chest. Then why the guards? Because Marcus plays dirty. Always has. Garrett's jaw tightened. He's been positioning himself as Dominic's rival for years. This challenge? It's been building for a long time. You're just the excuse he needed. Marin's hands stilled on the sheet. So this isn't really about me? It's about power, control. Marcus believes the old ways are holding the pack back. He wants to expand our territory, be more aggressive with neighboring packs, stop accepting human refugees like Iris. Garrett paused. He sees the mate bond as a weakness, proof that Dominic is too soft to lead. And what do you think? I think the mate bond is the strongest magic we have. I think any alpha lucky enough to find his fated mate becomes more powerful, not less. Garrett's expression softened fractionally. And I think Dominic would burn the world down to keep you safe. That kind of devotion? That's not weakness. That's what makes a true alpha. Before Marin could respond, Cole appeared in the doorway, his usual easy smile replaced by tension. Garrett, we've got a problem. They exchanged a look that made Marin's stomach drop. What kind of problem? The kind where you need to come with us, now. Cole's hand went to her elbow, gentle but insistent. Iris is waiting in your room. Fear spiked through her. Is it Dominic? Is he hurt? Just come on, Cole said, already guiding her down the hall. In her room, Iris stood by the window, her expression grave. On the bed lay a box, plain cardboard, no markings. This was left on the front desk, Iris said. Addressed to you. Marin approached slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. I don't know anyone here. Who would... Open it, Garrett said quietly, but carefully. With shaking hands, Marin lifted the lid. Inside was a baby blanket, soft, yellow, with little ducks embroidered on the corners. It was beautiful, perfect for a nursery. And pinned to it was a note in harsh, angular handwriting, for the pup that will never have an alpha to protect it. The implication was clear. Marcus was saying Dominic would lose, that he would die, that Marin's baby would be left fatherless before she was even born. That son of a bitch, Cole snarled. That's a direct threat. Dominic can't know. Iris's voice was sharp. Not before the challenge. He's already on edge. This would push him into doing something reckless. But, Marin started. She's right, Garrett interrupted. Dominic needs to stay focused. Calm. If he goes after Marcus now, before the full moon, it'll be seen as breaking the challenge terms. The pack won't support him. Marin stared at the blanket, fury and fear warring inside her. How dare Marcus threaten her baby? How dare he use her daughter as a psychological weapon? I want to see Dominic, she said suddenly. Where is he? The three of them exchanged glances. He's at his cabin, Cole said carefully. Preparing, meditating. He asked not to be disturbed. I don't care. Marin grabbed her coat. Take me to him, now. Marin, I don't think... Now, she repeated. And there was steel in her voice that surprised even her. Or I'll find it myself. Garrett studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Cole, stay here. Keep watch. I'll take her. Dominic's cabin sat deep in the forest, a simple structure of logs and stone that looked like it had grown out of the mountain itself. Smoke rose from the chimney, and Marin could see warm light through the windows. Wait here, Garrett said when they reached the porch. Let me make sure he's decent. He knocked and entered, leaving Marin outside. She could hear low voices, Garrett's calm rumble, Dominic's sharper response. Then Garrett emerged, jerking his head toward the door. He says to come in. But Marin? Go easy on him. He's been pushing himself hard. She stepped inside and stopped short. The cabin was sparse, a kitchen area, a sitting space with a fireplace, a loft bedroom visible above. But what caught her attention was Dominic. He stood shirtless in the center of the room, his body covered in sweat despite the cool air. More scars were visible now, silver lines crossing his chest and back, evidence of previous battles. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. They were wild, almost feral, flickering between dark brown and amber gold. "You shouldn't be here," he said roughly. I'm not fully in control right now." "I don't care." Marin closed the distance between them, ignoring Garrett's warning sound behind her. "Marcus left me a gift, a threat, really, against my baby." Dominic's eyes flashed pure gold. "What did he do?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm done hiding, done letting other people fight my battles." She placed her hand on his chest, over his heart, feeling it thunder beneath her palm. "I want to help you prepare. However I can." "You can't. The wolf is too close to the surface. If I lose control..." "You won't." She said it with absolute conviction. "Because I trust you. The man and the wolf." Something in Dominic's expression cracked. "You shouldn't. You don't know what I'm capable of." "I know you're capable of gentleness, of protection, of love." Marin's other hand came up to cup his face. "I know that when you look at me, I feel seen for the first time in my life. Really seen. Not as damaged or weak or broken, but as someone worth fighting for." "You are," Dominic breathed. "Worth everything." "Then let me be here. Let me help you." She held his gaze, refusing to look away even as his eyes flickered between human and wolf. "Please." For a long moment, Dominic stood rigid, fighting some internal battle. Then slowly, he covered her hand with his and turned his face into her palm, pressing a kiss there. "The wolf wants you close," he admitted quietly. "Needs it. Your scent, your presence. It calms the chaos. But Marin, if something happens, if I shift and can't control it, then I'll talk you back," she said simply. "The same way I did in the forest when you were hurt. You listened to me then. You'll listen now." Dominic pulled her close, careful of her belly, burying his face in her hair. His whole body was trembling with the effort of maintaining control. "Tell me about her," he said suddenly. "Your daughter. What do you imagine for her?" Marin understood what he was doing, anchoring himself to something human, something gentle. She let her hands stroke his back, soothing. "I want her to be brave," she said softly. "Braver than I was. I want her to know her own worth, to never let anyone make her feel small. I want her to grow up surrounded by love and safety, and people who will protect her fiercely. She will have that." Dominic's arms tightened fractionally. "I swear to you, whether I win or lose, I've already made arrangements. Iris, Cole, Garrett. They'll protect you both. You'll never be alone." "Don't." Marin pulled back enough to look at him. "Don't talk like you've already lost. You're the alpha for a reason. You're strong. Marcus is strong too, and he has nothing to lose." Dominic's eyes were dark again, haunted. "I'm terrified, Marin. Not of dying, but of leaving you. Of breaking my promise before I've even had a chance to keep it." Marin's heart clenched. This powerful man, this alpha, was vulnerable in a way she understood intimately. The fear of failing the people you loved. The weight of impossible choices. "Then don't die," she said fiercely. "Fight like everything depends on it. Because it does. Our future depends on it." "Our future," Dominic repeated, like the words were a revelation. "Say it again." "Our future. Mine, yours, and my daughter's." Marin pulled his face down to hers. "The future where we figure this out together. Where I learn what it means to be a Luna, and you learn how to change diapers. The future where we're a family." Dominic kissed her then, and it was different from the first time. Desperate and claiming, yes, but also tender. a promise sealed with lips and breath, and the electric bond that sang between them. When they broke apart, his eyes were clear again, calm. "Stay," he said. "Tonight. Just stay with me." Maren knew she should say no. Knew this was moving fast, probably too fast. But her heart had already made the decision. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll stay." Chapter 8. The night before. Garrett left with a knowing look and a quiet promise to stand watch outside. "No one gets past me," he said. And Maren believed him. The cabin felt suddenly intimate with just the two of them. Dominic built up the fire while Maren explored the small space, noting the books on wolves and pack dynamics, the sparse but comfortable furniture, the photographs on the mantle of wolves running through snow. "Is that your pack?" she asked, pointing to the largest photo. "Yes, 3 years ago." Dominic came to stand beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "That's Cole on the left, showing off as usual. Garrett's the dark one in the back, always watching, always aware. And that's you," Maren finished, recognizing the massive dark wolf at the center. Even in wolf form, there was something commanding about his posture, the way the others oriented themselves around him. "You're beautiful." Dominic made a sound that might have been embarrassment. "I'm a predator." "You can be both." She turned to face him. "Does it hurt? The transformation?" "It did when I was young. First shift is agony. Bones breaking and reforming, muscles tearing and rebuilding, every nerve on fire." He touched her arm gently. "But after years of shifting, it becomes natural. Like breathing. Some wolves can shift partially, just claws, or eyes, or enhanced senses. Others prefer to stay fully human most of the time. And you?" "I shift often. The wolf needs to run, to hunt, to feel free." His eyes met hers. "But lately, I find myself wanting to stay human more. Because the wolf can't hold you like this. Can't talk to you. Can't make you smile." Maren's breath caught. "You make me smile without trying." "Do I?" He traced her jaw with careful fingers. "I want to give you everything, Maren. Safety, security, a home. But I don't know if I can promise you normal." "I don't want normal." The words surprised her, but she realized they were true. "Normal is what I had before. A sterile apartment, a job I tolerated, a man who slowly crushed everything bright inside me. I don't want that kind of safe." "What do you want?" She thought about it, really thought. "I want to matter. I want my daughter to grow up fierce and unafraid. I want to wake up without that knot of terror in my stomach, wondering if today's the day he finds us." She placed her hand over his heart. "And I want to see where this goes. This impossible, terrifying, beautiful thing between us." Dominic's eyes blazed. "After tomorrow, if I win, you'll be Luna. The pack will look to you for guidance, for strength. There will be wolves who resent you. Like Marcus's followers. Yes, they'll test you, push boundaries, try to prove you're weak." His hand covered hers. "But they'll learn what I already know, that you're steel wrapped in softness, that your strength comes from surviving things that would break lesser people." "You see me better than I see myself," Maren whispered. "Then let me show you what I see." He led her to the couch by the fireplace and pulled her down beside him, careful of her belly. For a long moment, they simply sat there, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, and smell that wild scent that was purely him. "Tell me something true," she said softly. "Something you've never told anyone." Dominic was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I'm lonely. Have been for years. Being alpha means standing apart, making decisions that hurt people you care about, bearing weight that no one else can share. Cole and Garrett are my closest friends, my brothers. But there's still a distance, a loneliness that comes with the territory. His hand stroked through her hair, gentle and rhythmic. When I found you in that forest, when you touched me and the bond snapped into place, it was like color flooding into a gray world. Suddenly I wasn't alone anymore, and it terrified me, because I knew that losing you would destroy me in ways no physical wound ever could. Marin lifted her head to look at him. I'm scared too. Scared of trusting again. Scared of what it means to be tied to someone through magic I don't understand. Scared that this feeling is too good to be real. It's real. He cupped her face. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But the mate bond doesn't lie, Marin. What you feel when I touch you, that electric current, that's our souls recognizing each other. That's destiny. I want to believe in destiny, she admitted. But I'm damaged, Dominic. I have nightmares. Some nights I wake up screaming, thinking Marcus is standing over me. I flinch at sudden movements. I can't stand people raising their voices. Then I'll never raise my voice to you. Dominic interrupted gently. I'll wake you from nightmares and hold you until you remember you're safe. I'll move slowly and give you space when you need it. Love isn't about finding someone perfect, Marin. It's about finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours. Tears spilled down her cheeks. How can you be so sure about me? About us? Because the wolf knows. And for once, the man agrees completely. He brushed away her tears. I've been waiting my whole life for you. I just didn't know it until you looked into my eyes and chose to stay instead of run. Marin kissed him then, pouring all her fear and hope and desperate longing into it. Dominic responded with careful intensity, one hand cradling her head, the other resting protectively on her belly. The bond between them pulsed and strengthened, warm and right and terrifyingly real. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marin saw that his eyes had gone gold again, but this time it didn't frighten her. The wolf wants out, Dominic said roughly. Wants to claim you properly. Mark you so every shifter in 100 miles knows you're mine. What does that mean? Marking? A bite. Here. His thumb traced the curve where her neck met her shoulder. It's permanent. Links us even more deeply. Lets me feel your emotions, your physical state. Lets you call me from anywhere, and I'll come running. The idea should have seemed like too much, too fast. But Marin found herself tilting her head, offering her throat in a gesture of trust that spoke louder than words. Not yet, Dominic said, though his voice was strained. Not until after the challenge. If Marcus wins, if I don't survive, I won't leave you with a broken bond. The pain of losing a mate through death is... He shuddered. I won't risk putting you through that. Marin grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. You're going to win. Say it. Marin. Say it, she demanded. I need to hear you believe it. Dominic's jaw set with determination. I'm going to win. I'm going to beat Marcus, secure your place in this pack, and spend the rest of my very long life proving that fate knew exactly what it was doing when it brought you to me. Good. She kissed him again, softer this time. Because my daughter deserves the best alpha as a father, and I deserve a mate who fights for us. Always, Dominic promised. I will always fight for you. They talked through the night, about her past, his responsibilities, the logistics of being a Luna, what it would mean for her daughter to grow up in a pack. Dominic explained pack hierarchy, how challenges worked, the laws that governed their kind. Marin told him about her years working with animals, the small veterinary clinic where she'd felt useful, the slow descent of her relationship with Marcus. I should have left sooner, she said as dawn approached. I knew what he was, but he was so good at making me believe I deserved it. that I was too damaged for anyone else to want. He was wrong. Dominic's arms tightened around her. You're extraordinary. Any man would be honored to have you. Even with another man's baby? Especially then. Because it means you chose life and hope over fear. You chose to protect your daughter no matter the cost. That kind of courage? He kissed her forehead. That's what makes a true Luna. Outside, birds began their morning songs. The full moon would rise tonight, and with it, everything would change. Are you ready? Marin asked quietly. Dominic's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. With you here? With something to fight for beyond just survival? Yes. I'm ready. Then show me, Marin said. Show me the wolf. I want to see all of you before tonight. Dominic pulled back, searching her face. Are you sure? The wolf is still on edge. I'm sure. He stood slowly and stepped back, giving himself space. Marin watched as he closed his eyes, centering himself. Then the air around him seemed to shimmer. The transformation was beautiful and terrible at once. His body contorted, bones shifting beneath skin, muscles reforming. Dark fur rippled across his flesh as his features elongated into a muzzle. It took less than a minute, but when it was complete, the massive dark wolf from the forest stood before her. Those amber eyes found hers, intelligent and aware, and Marin felt the bond pulse between them. Stronger now, more primal. She stood slowly and approached, offering her hand. The wolf lowered his head, letting her touch the fur between his ears. It was softer than she expected, thick and warm. Hello, she whispered. I see you, both of you. The wolf made a sound, not quite a whine, not quite a growl. Contentment, she realized. He was content. And so, surprisingly, was she. Chapter 9. The Full Moon. Rising. The day of the challenge dawned cold and clear. Marin woke in Dominic's bed, alone. For a moment, panic seized her. Had he left without saying goodbye? But then she heard movement downstairs and smelled coffee brewing. She wrapped herself in one of his flannel shirts and descended the ladder from the loft. Dominic stood at the stove, cooking eggs with mechanical precision. He'd shifted back to human form sometime after she'd fallen asleep, and now he wore only jeans, his scarred back a map of battles fought and survived. You should eat, he said without turning around. The baby needs it. Marin approached slowly, noting the tension in his shoulders. Have you slept at all? Couldn't. He plated the eggs and turned to face her. His eyes were shadowed, but there was steel in them now. Purpose. I've been preparing, running through strategies, remembering Marcus's fighting style, finding his weaknesses. And? Marin accepted the plate he handed her. He's fast but reckless, powerful but undisciplined. He relies on brute strength rather than technique. Dominic poured coffee, regular for himself, decaf for her. If I can stay calm, controlled, I can outlast him. That's a lot of ifs. I know. He sat across from her at the small table. But I have something he doesn't. Something that makes me stronger. What's that? You. His eyes met hers, intense and unwavering. Marcus fights for power, for ego. I fight for love, for family. For a future I can actually see now. He reached across the table, taking her hand. That makes all the difference. Marin squeezed his fingers, feeling the bond hum between them. What happens tonight? Walk me through it. The pack gathers at moonrise in the old clearing, sacred ground where all challenges have been fought for generations. Marcus and I will shift and fight in wolf form. The battle continues until one of us submits or... He paused. Or dies. How do you submit? Expose your throat. Roll onto your back. Show complete vulnerability. Dominic's jaw tightened. It's a last resort. The winner can choose to spare the loser or finish it. Either way, the loser leaves the pack, exile or death. And the pack just watches? They witness, they judge. If the fight is honorable, they accept the outcome. If someone breaks the rules, outside interference, weapons, forbidden techniques, the pack intervenes. He studied her face. You'll be there. Cole and Garrett will keep you safe, but you'll have to watch. I need to know. Can you do that? Marin's stomach churned at the thought of watching Dominic fight for his life. But she forced herself to nod. Yes, if you can fight it, I can witness it. You're stronger than you know, Dominic said softly. They spent the morning together in careful domesticity, washing dishes, tending the fire, sitting in comfortable silence. Marin found herself memorizing details. The way sunlight caught in Dominic's dark hair, the rumble of his voice when he spoke, the gentleness in his hands despite their obvious strength. Around noon, Cole arrived with fresh clothes for Marin and news from town. The pack's gathering early, he reported, his usual levity absent. Everyone wants good positioning for the challenge. Marcus has been holding court all morning, making promises about what he'll do when he's alpha. When, not if. Dominic's voice was dangerously quiet. His supporters are confident, but so are yours. Cole's expression softened when he looked at Marin. A lot of the pack wants to meet you before tonight, especially the women. They're curious about the human who captured the alpha's heart. Marin's pulse quickened. I don't know if I'm ready. You don't have to, Dominic said immediately. Cole can make excuses. No. Marin straightened her spine. If I'm going to be Luna, I need to start acting like it. Take me to them. Pride flickered in Dominic's eyes. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She looked down at her borrowed clothes. Though maybe I should change first. An hour later, Marin stood in the clearing behind the motel, surrounded by women who could turn into wolves. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her chin up, meeting their curious and skeptical gazes. There were about 15 of them, ranging from a girl who couldn't be more than 16 to a silver-haired woman who looked ancient. Some watched her with open hostility. Others seemed merely curious. A few smiled tentatively. So you're the human, one woman said. She was tall and angular, with red hair and sharp green eyes. The one causing all this trouble. I didn't ask for any of this, Marin replied evenly. But I'm not running from it either. Because you have nowhere else to run, another woman sneered. She was younger, pretty in a hard way. Everyone knows you're just using Dominic for protection. Once your baby's born and you've got what you need, you'll leave. That's enough, Sienna, an older woman interjected. She had kind eyes and gray-streaked brown hair. The girl's barely been here 3 days. Give her a chance. Why should we? Sienna shot back. She's human. She doesn't belong in our world. And now Dominic's risking everything for her. Dominic is risking everything because of the mate bond, Marin interrupted, surprised by the strength in her own voice. A bond I didn't ask for and don't fully understand. But I know this. I would never ask him to fight for me. Never. If I could stop this challenge, I would. But you can't, the red-haired woman said. So the question is, what are you willing to do if he loses? Will you leave peacefully? Or will you cause more trouble for this pack? Marin's hand went protectively to her belly. If Dominic loses, I'll honor whatever terms were set. But don't mistake leaving for weakness. I've survived worse than exile. My daughter and I will be fine. You say that now. Sienna started. I say that because it's true. Marin's voice hardened. I spent 6 months on the road, pregnant and alone, running from a man who would kill me if he found me. I slept in my car, worked under the table for cash, went hungry so my baby wouldn't. So yes, I'll survive. I always do. Silence fell over the group. The older woman with kind eyes stepped forward, studying Marin with new interest. You're a fighter, she said quietly. I can see it in you. The same steel I saw in Iris when she first came here. Broken and terrified but refusing to stay down. She offered her hand. I'm Eleanor. I've been part of this pack for 40 years, and I think you'll make a fine Luna if you survive what's coming. What do you mean? Marin shook her hand, grateful for the gesture. Being Luna isn't just about being the alpha's mate. It's about being mother to the entire pack, mediating disputes, caring for the wounded, standing as a symbol of strength and compassion. Eleanor's grip tightened. Marcus has followers. Wolves who will resent you even if Dominic wins. They'll test you, push boundaries, try to prove you're unworthy. Let them try, Marin said. I'm done being afraid. A few of the women exchanged glances. One of them, a young woman with dark skin and warm eyes, smiled. I like her, she announced. She's got spine. Having spine and surviving pack politics are different things, Sienna muttered. But her hostility had lessened, fractionally. The red-haired woman, who introduced herself as Vera, crossed her arms. If Dominic wins tonight, you'll be expected to participate in pack rituals. Full moon runs, hunts, ceremonies. Can you handle watching your mate kill prey? Can you accept the violence that's part of our nature? Marin thought about the wolf she'd helped in the forest, the blood on her hands, the way she'd felt no fear, only compassion and strange recognition. I worked in veterinary medicine, she said. I've seen animals at their most primal. I understand predator and prey. I'm not naive about what wolves are. She met Vera's eyes. But I also know that wolves are loyal, protective, and family-oriented. Those are the parts of Dominic I love. The human and the wolf. I'm not asking him to change for me. Love? Eleanor's eyebrows rose. That's a strong word for knowing someone 3 days. The mate bond doesn't wait for convenience, Marin replied. It just is. And yes, I love him. The parts I know and the parts I'm still learning. I love his strength and his gentleness, his fierceness and his vulnerability. I love that he looks at my pregnant belly and sees a daughter to protect, not another man's burden. The words rang with truth, and Marin realized she meant everyone. Somewhere between the forest and this moment, fear had transformed into something deeper, something worth fighting for. Well, Eleanor said, a smile tugging at her lips, I suppose we'll see tonight what kind of Luna you'll be. But Marin, a word of advice. Yes? When the fighting starts, don't look away. Don't flinch. Don't show fear, even if you're terrified inside. The pack will be watching you as much as they're watching the fight. Show them strength, and they'll respect you. Show them weakness, and they'll tear you apart. Marin nodded, filing the advice away. Thank you, all of you, for giving me a chance. Don't thank us yet, Vera said. The hard part comes tonight. As Marin walked back to the motel with Cole, the sun was already beginning its descent toward the mountains. In a few hours, the moon would rise. In a few hours, everything would change. You did good, Cole said quietly. Most humans would have folded under that kind of pressure. I'm not most humans, Marin replied. And I'm done being weak. You were never weak, Cole corrected. Survival takes its own kind of strength. You just didn't know how strong you were. Marin looked up at the mountains, at the forest where this had all begun. Somewhere out there, Dominic was preparing, centering himself for the fight of his life. I'm ready, she whispered to the wind, to fate, to whatever force had brought her here. Let's finish this. Chapter 10. Blood and Moonlight. The sacred clearing was exactly as Maren had imagined, and nothing like it at all. Ancient stones formed a rough circle, worn smooth by centuries of use and marked with symbols she didn't recognize. Towering pines ringed the space, their branches creating a natural cathedral that opened to the sky. And everywhere, wolves gathered. Some were in human form, standing in clusters according to allegiances. Others had already shifted, massive creatures that paced the perimeter with restless energy. All of them turned to watch as Cole and Garrett escorted Maren into the clearing. The weight of their collective stare was suffocating. "Head up," Garrett murmured. "You're the Alpha's mate. Act like it." Maren forced her spine straight and kept her eyes forward, even as her heart threatened to beat out of her chest. Cole and Garrett led her to the north side of the circle, where Eleanor and a few other women had saved them space. "Good," Eleanor whispered as Maren took her place. "You look like a Luna already." But Maren barely heard her. Her eyes had found Dominic. He stood at the eastern edge of the clearing, already shirtless, speaking quietly with a group of wolves in human form. Even from this distance, she could feel his presence, commanding, controlled, radiating the kind of power that made others instinctively submit or challenge. As if sensing her gaze, Dominic's head turned. Their eyes met across the clearing, and everything else faded. The bond between them flared bright and hot, and Maren felt his emotions crash over her. Determination, fear, fierce protectiveness, and underneath it all, love so intense it stole her breath. "I fight for you," his eyes seemed to say. "Only you." Then Marcus entered the clearing from the west, and the air itself seemed to thicken. He was bigger than Maren remembered, all muscle and barely contained aggression. His supporters flanked him, including Sienna and several other wolves who had made their disdain for Maren clear. Marcus's eyes swept the crowd until they found her, and his smile was purely predatory. "The human came," he called out, his voice carrying across the clearing. "I'm almost impressed. Most soft creatures would hide from what's about to happen. She's here because she's stronger than you'll ever understand." Dominic's voice rang out, cold and absolute. "And when this is over, you'll show her the respect she deserves. Or you'll leave Clearwater in shame." Bold words for a wolf who's about to lose everything. Marcus stepped into the center of the circle, and Dominic moved to meet him. They faced each other like opposing storms. "Last chance to back down, Dominic. Renounce your claim on the human, and I'll let you keep your position. We can tell the pack the mate bond was a mistake." There was no mistake. Dominic's voice dropped to something primal, something that made every wolf in the clearing stand at attention. "Maren is my mate, my future Luna. Anyone who challenges that challenges me. And you know how those challenges end." A ripple of unease passed through Marcus's supporters. Apparently, Dominic had a reputation. "Then we do this the old way." Marcus began to strip off his shirt. To submission or death. The winner takes the pack. The loser gets nothing. Agreed. Dominic glanced once more at Maren, his eyes blazing gold. Then he closed them and let the transformation take him. It was faster this time, more violent. His body contorted and reformed, bones cracking and reshaping, until the massive dark wolf stood in his place. Marcus shifted a heartbeat later, his wolf form slightly smaller but no less intimidating, rust-colored fur and teeth like daggers. An ancient woman in ceremonial robes stepped forward, the pack's elder, Maren realized. Her voice carried despite her age. "By ancient law and sacred tradition, we witness this challenge. 2 wolves enter, 1 alpha emerges. Let no one interfere, on pain of exile. Let the strongest lead. Let the wisest prevail." She raised her arms to the sky where the full moon was just beginning to crest the mountains. By moonlight and blood, let it begin. She stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. The two wolves circled each other, measuring, testing. Then Marcus lunged. The impact was brutal. Marcus's teeth found Dominic's shoulder, tearing through fur and flesh. Dominic twisted, using Marcus's momentum against him, and they crashed into the ground in a tangle of fur and violence. Marin's hands clenched into fists. Eleanor's advice echoed in her mind. Don't look away. Show them strength. So she watched, forcing herself to see every moment. Watched as Dominic threw Marcus off and lunged for his throat. Watched Marcus dodge and rake claws across Dominic's side. Watched blood, too much blood, stain the earth. The wolves fought with savage intensity, all technique abandoned in favor of raw power. They crashed through the circle, their snarls echoing off the trees. Marcus was faster, landing more hits. But Dominic was stronger, each of his strikes more devastating. Around the clearing, the pack watched in tense silence. Some of Marcus's supporters shouted encouragement. Others looked uncertain, as if questioning their choice. Then Marcus made a mistake. He went for Dominic's throat, overextending, leaving his belly exposed for a fraction of a second. Dominic took it. His jaws clamped around Marcus's front leg and twisted viciously. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the clearing. Marcus yelped, a sound of shock and pain, and stumbled. Dominic pressed his advantage, driving Marcus backward toward the stones. But Marcus wasn't finished. With a desperate snarl, he launched himself at Dominic's wounded side, teeth finding the already torn flesh. Dominic's legs buckled. Marin's heart stopped. No. No, get up. Please get up. As if hearing her, Dominic's head turned fractionally toward where she stood. Their eyes met again, and Marin felt the bond pulse between them, feeding him strength, giving him purpose. Fight, she thought fiercely, pouring every ounce of will into that single word. Fight for us, for our future, for the family we're going to build. Dominic's eyes flashed brighter. With a surge of power that seemed to come from nowhere, he threw Marcus off and rose to his full height. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, favoring one leg, but the look in his eyes was pure alpha. Dominant, unyielding, absolute. Marcus must have seen it too. His ears flattened, and for the first time, Marin saw fear in his eyes. The fight changed after that. Dominic moved with calculated precision, no longer just defending but systematically breaking down Marcus's defenses. A strike to the injured leg. A bite to the shoulder that made Marcus cry out. A body slam that drove the air from Marcus's lungs. Each attack was deliberate, controlled. The work of an alpha who had earned his position through years of battle and strategy. Finally, with Marcus pinned beneath him, Dominic's jaws closed around his throat, not breaking the skin, but making the threat unmistakable. One wrong move, one moment of resistance, and it would be over. The clearing held its breath. Slowly, so slowly, Marcus went limp. His body relaxed into submission, his throat exposed in complete surrender. Dominic held the position for a long moment, making sure every wolf present understood who had won. Then, deliberately, he released Marcus and stepped back. Marcus lay in the dirt, panting, defeated but alive. The choice to spare him had been made. The ancient elder stepped forward again. The challenge is complete. Dominic remains alpha. Marcus has submitted and lives. But by law of the challenge, he must leave Clearwater within 3 days. His followers may choose to stay and pledge loyalty to the Alpha, or follow Marcus into exile. Around the clearing, Marcus's supporters exchanged uncertain glances. A few moved forward immediately, bowing their heads to Dominic in submission. Others hesitated. Sienna looked torn, her eyes darting between Marcus and Marin. Dominic shifted back to human form, his body covered in blood and wounds, but his bearings still proud. He strode across the clearing directly to Marin, ignoring everyone else. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice rough. His hands framed her face, searching for any sign of distress. "Am I?" Marin laughed, slightly hysterical. "You're the one who just—" Her voice broke. "You're hurt. You need medical attention. I need you." He pulled her close, careful of her belly, burying his face in her hair. "Gods, I need you." Marin held him as tightly as she dared, feeling him tremble with exhaustion and adrenaline. Around them, the pack watched this display of vulnerability from their alpha with varied expressions, some understanding, others confused, a few openly moved. "You won," Marin whispered against his chest. "You're still alpha." "We won," Dominic corrected. "I felt you through the bond. Your strength, your belief. That's what gave me the edge." He pulled back enough to look at her. "You're my Luna now. Officially." The pack witnessed it. Before Marin could respond, Eleanor approached with several other women, carrying medical supplies. "Let us tend to you, Alpha," she said gently. "You're bleeding on your mate." Dominic allowed himself to be led to one of the stones, where the women began cleaning and bandaging his wounds. Marin stayed at his side, holding his hand, feeling the bond pulse steadily between them. Cole and Garrett appeared, both grinning. "Hell of a fight, Dom," Cole said. "Though you had us worried there for a minute." "I had me worried," Dominic admitted. His eyes found Marcus, who was being helped to his feet by his remaining supporters. 3 days, Marcus. Then I never want to see you in my territory again." Marcus met his gaze with something like grudging respect. "You fought well. Better than I expected." He glanced at Marin. "Maybe the human does make you stronger. Or maybe you were just lucky." "It wasn't luck," Marin said, surprising herself. "It was love. Something you clearly don't understand." Marcus's expression darkened, but he said nothing else. He limped, away, his defeat complete. As the pack began to disperse, some shifting to run under the full moon, others gathering to celebrate their alpha's victory, Eleanor leaned close to Marin. "You did well tonight," she murmured. "You didn't flinch, didn't look away, showed them strength." She smiled. "Welcome to the pack, Luna. The real test starts tomorrow."